Good evening, everyone. Myself, Yusra Khan, convener of Lawlicious. Lawlicious is an organizing committee founded by Mr. Vivek Dikshit, which provides knowledge about internships, debate, and moot court competition. Lawlicious was established in year 2023 with the mindset to dwell upon the importance of legalism. Lawlicious Committee focused on promoting legal awareness through webinars and competitions for scholars, which is beneficial for all law students. We organized various webinars as well as many competitions to push the legal mindset of scholars to make them aware of their legal profoundings. Lawlicious has hosted more than 40 plus webinars on various topics. Just a few months ago, we hosted a debate competition as well as a quiz competition. We also hosted many speech competition and moot court competitions too. Okay, let me introduce to our committee's co-member, founder Mr. Vivek Dikshit, I convener Yusra Khan, co-convener Preeti, organizing committee head Divyanshu Mishra, and our event manager Ashu Mishra. So let me tell you one thing. Each and everyone participant, please fill the feedback form for your certificate. If you will fill the form that we will give, then only you will receive your certificate. Otherwise, you will not get. I repeat again, fill the feedback form we will give in the chat box session. If you fill that form, then you will receive your certificates. Otherwise, you will not get. Okay, without wasting any time, I would like to introduce to our keynote speaker of today's guest lecture, Advocate Tayyaba Fatima ma'am. Ma'am is currently practicing in District Court of Vilumpura and High Court of Madras, Tamil Nadu. Currently, ma'am is a research student specializing in Department of Taxation Law. During her UG, ma'am has drafted two legislative draftings on the drones bill and on the same-sex marriage bill, which secured sixth and ninth position respectively. She has participated and won many state and national moot court competitions, especially female best speaker many times. Ma'am has presented 12 research papers, out of which 7 has been published. She has mentored around 500 plus students from various colleges. She has also been invited to deliver special lectures on taxation laws by many institutions to help students knowing the current changes in tax laws. Okay, with due respect, I pass the mic to Advocate Tayyaba Fatima ma'am to take the session forward. Forward. Up to you, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. So, shall we begin with this session? And before starting the session, I just want to know how many of them haven't attended any moot or new or just a beginner to the moot. You can raise your hands or you can message in chat box. Yeah, so that I'll be explaining from A to Z on how you will be participating and so yes. There are many of them who haven't attended any moot and are new to this field. So, before starting about how to participate in moot, let us see what is moot court. So, after your enrollment, after completing your BL degree, after your enrollment, you will obviously go and stand before any court. It may be a high court, it may be a district court, it may be a tribunal, or any kind of special courts. So, when you go and stand before the judge, you if you are already a mooter or if you already have knowledge on it, you can obviously go and address the judge in a correct manner, and you will know how to draft a petition and how a case law can be dealt regarding that case, regarding which is corresponding to your fact and everything. So if you are getting a chance to join or to participate in moot, you can definitely go. Please don't miss that opportunity when you get a chance of mooting. So if you take me in my college, I am the third batch student. Mine was a newly opened government law college, and we are the third batch. And in our first batch, there weren't anyone to motivate or anyone to teach about what was moot. And likewise for the second batch, only two teams were there in the whole second batch itself. When it comes to our batch, there will be many mooters, because we learned it by ourselves. There were no one in our college to conduct some webinars or some orientation programs on how to moot. We used to see YouTube videos, recordings of either moot court orientation programs and the recordings of final rounds in YouTube, and we learned it ourselves. So this is a good opportunity for you to learn from here. And uh, let's move to what is moot. So moot court is nothing but a dummy setup of how a real court will be. And the participants who are already, or who are enrolled as an advocate, or who are practicing as an advocate, or or your lecturers and staff, may come as a judge for you in your moot court and adjudicate you, and give you points or marks based on your performance. That is the moot court. So you will be acting as an advocate there, and the judges will be acting as a real judge there, and will be dealing you with the or asking you any questions if they have any doubt. So, starting with moot court, participation in the moot court starts from registration. Obviously, you have to register in moot court if you have to participate. It may be some will be paid registration, some will be non-paid registration. It will be free of cost. So, how many members in the moot court? In the sense, one, speaker two, and researcher. There will be three persons in a team. There may be two persons, speaker one and speaker two alone, and any one of them can act as a researcher. But as far as the moot court I attended, or as far as the moot court I have gone as a judge, I have seen only three members there. So there will be three members: speaker one, speaker two, and a researcher. The work of a researcher is helping you in drafting your memorial. And if judges ask any questions on the dais, he or she will be helping you in searching your answers. If suddenly a judge asks about a case law, then you might not go and search in the dais. So researcher will be helping you. That is the work of a researcher. Speaker one will be dealing with one or two issues, and speaker two will be dealing with one or two issues. If there is four issues in your moot court proposition, have you all gone through any moot court proposition? Any proposition having 3-4 pages along with the questions, issues? Yes. Okay. You will have issues in the last page. Okay, I'll send to your coordinator after the session the model of the proposition, the model of the memo, the judging criteria, how you will be judged. So I'll send all four of this to your moot coordinator, and he will send it to you back after the session. Done. Okay, you can just refer it while doing your memorials. I'll send two best memorials on behalf of me, which was prepared by me, and I'll send the mark how a judge will be marking you and everything. So don't worry, I'll send. So after your registration, you have to, okay. Issues will be four, obviously, three or four. If there is three issues, speaker one and two will divide themselves between 1.5, 1.5, or one or two. If speaker one is good in or giving, he or she will take two issues, and speaker two will be taking one issue. It is purely based. This is the discussion purely based on the team members. And after your registration, after the final registration, you will start preparing your memorials. So before drafting your memorials, you have to read the moot proposition at least 10 times. I'm saying at least 10 times. You can read it 15 or 20 times also. So for the first time, you won't understand anything. You will be like you'll be playing a hide and seek game there. First 2 or 3 times, you won't understand what is given there. And in your fourth and fifth time, you will be understanding, okay, this is the problem that we are going to deal with. And in your eighth or ninth attempt only, you will have an idea that petitioner is wrong in this area, respondent is wrong in this area, and some other clue points in your mind. So with that sparkle in your mind only, you can draft your moot proposition, which is for the petitioner side and respondent side separately. After your reading, after your understanding, after you understand the mood problem, what the problem is coming to say, or what the problem is about, you can move on to building your memorials. So your memorial, after the abbreviations, you will be having your table of content, your abbreviations, your list of cases, your websites or your references. After that, the main part starts in the summary of issue. Summary of issue is nothing but the problem in your moot court proposition will be given for 4 or 5 pages, right? 4 or 5 whole pages. You will be shortening up into a summary and will be giving it for a single page. No summary should be more than 1 page for issues. So your summary of facts will be for only 1 page, not more than that. You can give it in points, you can give it in small paragraph, you can give it in any way as you wish, but it should be only 1 page, not more than that. After your summary of facts, you will be moving on to summary of arguments. Summary of arguments in the sense, mostly in the constitutional law related moot court problems, the first question will be whether the petitioner has the right or locus standi to file the public interest litigation, or whether this public interest litigation is maintainable in the Honorable Supreme Court. It will be the first question for 70% of the moot problems. So your summary of arguments in the sense, for petitioner you will be obviously giving yes, this public interest litigation is maintainable under this honorable court, and etc, etc. And before that, you will be giving jurisdiction, under what jurisdiction you are reaching the court. For Supreme Court, you will be reaching it with 226. For High Court, you will be reaching it with different articles. Or if you are giving an SLP under 138, you will be dealing with that. So whichever the article you are dealing with it, if you are combining both the writ petitions, you will be having you have to give another article. So it totally depends upon the type of the fact, and after that your summary of facts, and after that your summary of arguments. For your first argument, first question, you will be giving about, yes, the petitioner is having the locus standi to file the problem and it is maintainable. Yes, yes, you will be giving short answers to the issues for about half a page only. If there is 4 page, you will be completing the summary of arguments in 2 pages itself. Yes or no will be the main highlight, and the points you have inserted inside will be given as a hint there, because or something, because the petitioner is an non-governmental organization that is purely running for the welfare of the people, and etc. You can give reasons for that. And likewise, for petitioner, you will be saying no, there is no this PIL should not be maintainable under the honorable court because the petitioner is not having any locus standi, and NGO is not considered, is not running on the hands of government, or the NGO is not having any intention to give it as a public interest litigation. It is purely a private litigation. It is done for the advertisement of the non-governmental organization, and this bill should be dismissed, like that. You have to give it in a short summary form in your summary of arguments. And moving on to summary of arguments, you will be dealing with your elaborate form of arguments, your arguments. For issue 1, at least for each issues, there should be 10 case laws supporting your arguments. You cannot randomly give cases. You have to analyze the case, and you have to see if the case really fits for your problem. Whether the fact of the original case and the fact of your frictional moot court case is slightly corresponding, that this case will be good if it is given there. So for each issue, there should be at least 10 cases. And another thing, don't give only the case laws. That will be also not good for the adjudicator when he or she sees your moot. Don't give only case laws. Give your logic, give case law. Give your logic, give case law. Under what logic you are saying? Under what criteria you are saying that the petition is not eligible for this petition? And under what criteria the court has to declare that this public interest litigation is not maintainable under this court? So you have to give your logic along with the case law, not only case law. I have seen various memos having hundreds of case law, 100 or 150 case laws, but there will be no point of logic there. The facts should, is not necessary that the fact should match exactly, because you won't find cases that the fact in your proposition and the fact in the judgment matches. Your judgment should match, and it is at least there should be a match of 30 or 20% is enough, but it shouldn't be irrelevant. It should be irrelevant to the facts of the proposition and the fact of the case. There should be a slight match, and you have to look into the judgment. Maybe there will be different fact of the case, but if the judgment is supporting you, if any Supreme Court has given a judgment that NGO, non-government organization, is not liable or eligible to give public interest litigation on behalf of any public, so it is the judgment of the Supreme Court, then you can obviously use that case even if the fact is not matching you. So you have to look into the judgment or the facts. If it is relevant, you can obviously give. And it is not necessary that every case law you give should match the fact of the proposition and the original judgment. And if you're giving some judgments like that in your higher arguments, you can have your facts that matches the judgment. You can do it anyway, but the fact or the judgment shouldn't be relevant to what you're talking, to what you're coming and standing before the court. If the judgment is talking about any other thing, if the judgment is talking that the newspaper reporter cannot file a public interest litigation, and in your fact it is given that a NGO has filed a public interest litigation, then it is of no match. Then you cannot use that case. So you have to analyze it whether it matches your case law or not. That's it. And after your broad argumentation, you can give at least 4 to 5 pages for your each issues. And in many moot court proposition, I have seen there will be a page limit. It should be below 35 pages. It should be below 30 pages. It should be below 25 pages. And it depends upon the moot court committee of that organization. So you have to complete it before or less than the pages given. If it is given 35 pages, you can complete at 34 pages, including the cover page. So your cover page for petitioner will be, for petitioner, blue color, and for respondent it is red color. This is the universal criteria for all the moots. And after your argument for all the 3 or 4 issues is over, you will be moving on to prayer. So the prayer is obviously the same in the lights of the arguments cited before the court, upon the cases cited, upon the statute cited. I request the honorable court to, for respondent, you'll obviously say to make this public interest litigation maintainable under this article. For respondent, you will be writing, or you'll be saying about to dismiss this public interest litigation likewise. So this is the simplest form of how you have to prepare your memorials for your moot court, both petitioner and respondent. So if you are giving a logic for respondent, the logic which is opposite for that can be used for the petitioner, right? So you have to only you will get a points to write in your memorials only if you read it at least for 10 times. I used to read it at least 20 times before I register. Even before I register for a moot court, I would read it 3 to 4 times, and I'll see whether this problem is okay for us, or whether we can argue with this problem, or something. After that only I used to register in the moot if it is okay for me. And if I'm not interested or I cannot cope up with the problem, even if after reading it 3 to 4 times, I won't do. You have to strictly follow the fact that is given in your proposition. You cannot use any hypothetical extensions. You have to strictly follow the fact that is given in your proposition. And you have to talk based on your facts. If judges ask you any question, you should have the fact in your hand, and you should say that lordship, the fact itself is the same, so that's why I'm arguing on this stand. So your fact is the major place where you will be standing up in front of the court. That is has to preparing of moot court memorials. And Having any doubt with the preparation of moot court memorial? Oral arguments will be dealt in this half an hour. And any doubt in preparing your memorials? At least I'll send the model copies also. And as far as I said, as far as which was explained by me now, if you have any doubt, you can ask in chat box. Okay. So no, there is no doubt. Okay, I'm happy. And moving on to after your so after can we
Ma'am, excuse me, ma'am.
yes
Ma'am,
you
I have
can
a doubt. Ma'am, what should be the language structure we can use to make our memorial simple yet impressive at the same time?
the language should be very simply understandable to the readers, which is maybe the judge who comes as a judge for you. So don't use the stylish American words, because I have a experience where my opponent was arguing in semifinals and we are the petitioner and they are the respondent. The my petitioner, the opposite team member, talked as if the uh, he has a more legacy in English. So this that. So after completing the rounds, he told you can use simple English to argue, and it doesn't mean if you use a high standard English that means you have studied more or you have a great knowledge in law. No, you can use a simple language while arguing as well as in your memo, but there should be any grammatical mistake. That it should be a meaningful sentence. Can we include many cases which supports one argument and same argument? If the judgment is the same for 3 or 4 cases, you can cite all the 3 or 4 cases stating it is the judgment. You can cite as many as cases as far as it is relevant to your uh, facts and it supports your argument or the same argument. You can use how many of the cases you can, but the case should be genuine. And any quick suggestions on argument structure or how it is formed? Argument structure will be dealing. I'll be dealing with argument now. Argument structure. Okay. You can 1.1. If you're dealing with issue one, it is the one. And if you're giving the point has the petition has no locus standi, it is 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, and inside 1.1, do you have any sub issues? You can write 1.1.1, 1.1.2, likewise. You can check the draft. I'll be sending it. I didn't have the idea of sending because there are many newcomers here. I'll be sending it, and please don't share it with anyone. Don't share the mark list which I will be sending because it is so confidential, and there will be a signature of mine in that. So if you send it or if you publish it somewhere, I'll be having any issues with it. So don't do that. And that's all. So we'll be moving on with the oral arguments. You have
Ma'am,
you
good,
yes.
good evening, ma'am. Sorry to interrupt
No,
you.
no, no problem.
Ma'am, I have once participated in a moot court competition, and there is
Okay.
one thing I really wanted to ask. Like when we are having, when we exchange our memorial, or even simply say that we prepare our memorial, then what are the different? What are the things that make a simple memorial, even though it does not have a many case, like thousands of cases and all, but it is so better than the other memorials? How, what are the things that a student should add or must do to make their memorial so impactful that even the judges feel that they are doing, they have did a very better job in making the memorial than the rest of the teams?
So if you look into the best memorial, the memorial of the team which scored best memorial, the logic of the arguments will be very nice. obviously it will be very nice. And there won't be only cases in those memorials. There will be logic, there will be explanations, there will be cases, and all such thing will be present in the memorial of a best memorial. So if you see the I mean the low graded memorial which has low points, there will be only cases or only the repeated points. The points which are mostly repeated is the it is not a public interest litigation, it is a private interest litigation. So this point will be a is a board point for the uh, person who is evaluating your memorials, and is the most oldest and the boring one. So you can use any other thing apart from it is not a public interest litigation, it is a private interest litigation. You can use any other good form of criteria, a good form of points that supports their argument.
Ma'am,
That's it.
because in that moot court competition, I made a friend with the moot court organizing committee, and they showed me the best memorial. They sent me the copy of the PDF file of the best memorial, and that was where I saw it was not having many cases. Like it was only having 30 to 35 cases, and still it was one of the best memorial that and the structure was simple. Like, but ma'am, it was not having such kind of fancy project look which we used to make in our school. But ma'am, it won the and it got the highest prize, and it was the best memorial in that till the moot court that every judge who saw that memorial was praising it. So ma'am, why was it I was unable to understand that point? And
See,
for
it means if the memorial which you saw was having only 35 cases, as I said, if you're giving cases for a single issue, there should be at least 10. So obviously 35 is a good number of cases, and the team members would have used a good logic in finding out the problems, not the problems which all the teams have done. If there is any unique criteria that the petitioner that the team members have evaluated or added in their memorials, obviously it will be the best memorial. So it depends upon the person who is evaluating. Mostly the person who drafts you the moot proposition will be the person who evaluates your memorial also. So if the person who is drafting your proposing your moot facts or proposition will be having a criteria that any teams have this kind of logic, then that team will be given high marks. So if both the criteria or the logics match, the moot court proposition drafters and the team members matches, then obviously the drafter will be giving high points for the person who has drafted that memorial for that particular team. So it totally depends upon the logic used, the cases used. Maybe also you just saw the number of cases, right? 35 cases, but you didn't see what the cases was. Maybe the cases the team members included was very matchy to the fact, or very different or very rare case. Maybe it is the most case that is not dealt by other persons, which is the toughest case to find out or something. So each and every criteria depends on your best memorial, not only the number of cases.
okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
So after your moot court is submitted through Google Forms or through mail, you will be going to the venue for your moot court competition. So obviously it will be we'll be having it for 2.5 days. The first day evening will be your inauguration, your draw of lots, your exchange of memorials, and next day morning you will be having your preliminary round one. So now I will dictate you some points on how to talk before the court. So you go and stand before you go and sit in your petitioner side for your preliminary round one. There will be two preliminary rounds, preliminary round one and preliminary round two, where all the participants participate in the preliminary round, and top 8 marks in the preliminary round will be taken to the quarterfinals. And in quarterfinals, it will be a knockout round and one-on-one round. So obviously the 8 teams will be reducing to 4 teams after one-on-one round, and in that 4 teams, it semifinals will be connected for that 4 teams, and it is also a one-on-one round. And in that, winning 2 teams will be going for finals, and in finals, which is the team having high marks, will be given a winner cup, and the one with the low marks will be given a runner-up cup. And best speaker female, best speaker male, best memorial, best researcher. This is the six common trophies that is given in most of the memorials. If the institution wishes, he may give second best memorial, second best speaker, second runner up, etc. But the six prizes which I told you now is the common prizes that is given to all the participants, given in all the moot court proposition. So now you're going to your court hall, you're sitting in your petitioner dais, your speaker one, and you are about to go and argue. You will be the petitioner. Speaker one will be the first person that is who is going to argue there. So the judges arrive, the judges are taking their place. Obviously you have to raise up when the judges enter the court hall. You'll be raising up and you will be asking the judges. You are the speaker one and petitioner. Imagine you are the speaker one and petitioner. You'll be standing up, raising up and asking the judge, may I reach the dais? May I reach the dais? If you want, I can type it in chat box. Shall I, or you will just write it down as I dictate? So this will be the first point you will be giving up to the judges. The council seeks permission to reach the podium. So you will be getting up from the place where you have seated to the podium, which is placed in center of both the petitioner and respondent. So here it is petitioner, here it is respondent. The judges are seated in the front and you will be having a podium in the back side. So this is the seating arrangement of the moot court. So you obviously raise up and ask the council seeks permission to reach the podium, and definitely the judges will be saying yes. So if every time the judges say yes or ask you to do something, you will be giving a reply called much obliged, your lordship. So you'll be replying it with much obliged, your lordship, and you'll be going and standing in front of the podium. And many mooters used to ask, if there is a lady judge, I call them as ladyship. If it is a male judge, I'll call you as a lordship. But I don't use that. I'll be using lordship for any gender of any gender the judge is sitting. If whether it is a male judge or a female judge, I used to address as lordship in individually and also collectively. So you will be going and introducing yourself that I am speaker one on behalf of the petitioner in the case of A versus B. Whatever your case is, whatever you have given it in your post title, then you'll be introducing yourself to the court like that. So I'll be typing. So this is the counsel on behalf of the petitioner in the case of A versus B. You will be writing your case obviously, and after that you will be asking your judges. If the judges permit, I'll be starting with explaining my summary of facts. So if the lordship permits, I shall begin with the summary of facts. Obviously, the judges are going to say yes, and you're going to explain your facts. You have to explain your facts, not you have to read your facts. I have seen many people having a paper like this in their hand. They'll be opening it. They'll be like A, B, C, D, in front of the court. You shouldn't do, or you shouldn't see the paper and read your facts. Even if it is a case law, or if it is any point, you can obviously look at your paper. But for facts, you shouldn't look at your paper. If I see someone reading your facts by seeing a paper, I will obviously reduce marks for them, because without even knowing your facts, how can he or she come and stand before the court? So no reading your summary of facts or explaining your facts by seeing a paper. You should be explaining with whatever you know. You shouldn't mug it up also. You should be explaining in your own English, in your own simple English that is understandable to the judges in simple language without seeing the paper. So this is exclusively for facts and prayer. But in arguments, you can obviously look at your notes for citing your cases, because it is not possible to memorize all the cases. But in facts, you will be explaining the fact to judges without seeing your paper. And if the fact is over, you'll be asking your judges if the lordships are satisfied. So after your summary of facts is explained to the judges, already before coming to the court hall, the judges would have read the summary, the moot proposition for about 4 to 5 times. They already know the fact, but they are just testing you whether if you know the fact clearly or not. That's it. So after your facts are over, if the lordship are satisfied with the fact, I shall move on to arguments. And obviously the judges are going to say yes, and you're going to say much obliged, and you're going to move on with the arguments. If you wish, you can say, if there is 4 issues, issue 1 and 2 will be dealt by me, and issue 3 and 4 will be dealt by my co-counsel, or issue 1 will be dealt by me, and issue 2 and 3 will be dealt by my co-counsel. If you wish, you can add this, or else this is more than enough. And you start explaining your first issue. You'll be stating issue 1 is whether the public interest litigation is maintainable in the Honorable Supreme Court of Sindhiana. And you'll be explaining, you'll be citing what are all the points that is supporting your arguments. If the judges have any doubt, or if the judges questions you in between, you have to look at the eyes of the judges, not into your paper or not somewhere. If the judges is asking question to you while you're standing in the podium, you have to have eye contact with the judges. You have to obviously going to look at them. You're going to understand what the judge is asking you, and you are going to reply to the judges, right? So after your issue 1 is over, after you argued with the issue 1, and it is almost the judges are satisfied with the issue, and you answered your best to the questions asked by the judges. So after completing everything, you're going to ask, if the lordships are satisfied with the issue 1, I shall move on to next issue. The same, the positions will be just changing out. So if the judges are not satisfied with your issue, they will be asking you any doubt or any questions regarding your arguments or something. And if the judges are satisfied, they'll be saying yes, obviously, and you're going to say much obliged, your lordships, and you're going to start with your issue 2. And you'll be stating your issue 2. You will argue the issue 2 has, like the first issue, you'll be citing your cases, you'll be citing your logics, you'll be citing the explanation you brought to explain before the court, so has to make your public interest litigation maintainable, and etc. And after completing your issue 2, you will be, if it is the part of issue 1 and issue 2 are the part of speaker 1, you will obviously say, if these judges are satisfied with issue 1 and 2, I shall move on, and my co-counsel will be dealing with the rest of the issues. And you will go to your respective places, and the speaker 2 will be coming and standing in front of the podium. And likewise, while coming and standing in front of the podium, he or she may ask the permission of the court. If the lordships permit, I may reach the podium, right? So your co-counsel will be coming and standing in front of the podium and dealing with issue 3 and 4, and he will be asking the lordships to start his issue 3. If the lordships permit, I may begin with issue 3. Obviously the lordships are going to say yes, and you're going to start with issue 3, and has after explaining your issue 3 and after answering all the questions the judges asked you, everything, you are going to ask the judges. If the judges are satisfied with the issue 3, I shall move on to issue 4. In the case of it is 4 issue, or if it is only 3 issues, you will be asking the judges to if you are satisfied with the arguments, I'll move on to prayer. Right, I have to type this also, or you will just rephrase it? You want me to type, or you will rephrase it? Nobody is answering. Okay, thank you. And after your 4th issue is dealt, you will obviously say if the lordships are satisfied with the issue 3 and 4, I'll move on to prayers. If the lordships are satisfied with issue 3 and 4, I'm just copying and pasting. Prayer is something which is kept in the last page of the memorial, and it will be explained what you're praying in front of the court. If you want the public interest litigation to be maintainable, if you want the public interest litigation to be dismissed, or whatever it is, will be given in your prayers. That's it for petitioner. And next you are going to deal it for respondent in the same way. The same kind of entry permissions, the same kind of thing. Only you'll be changing it in arguments. You will be having different arguments, and while explaining to the judges, this is counsel 1 on behalf of the respondent in the case of A versus B. You won't have time to recite all the cases which you have referred in the memo. Your copy of the memorial will be also with the judges, and the judges will go through, but you have to explain as much as possible, but you won't be having that much time, because for your preliminary round you will be given half an hour. You will be given 20 minutes or half an hour, it depends. So if it is 20 minutes, you will be having only 8 or 9 minutes for you to deal with 2 issues, issue 1 and issue 2, and another last 1 minute will be given for rebuttal and surrebuttal, and I'll be explaining what is rebuttal and surrebuttal. And likewise, if it is half an hour, you'll be given 12 or 13 minutes to deal with your 2 issues. So in 12 or 13 minutes, in sense, 6 minutes per issue. In 6 minutes, you will not have time to recite or explain all the cases you took. So you have to put in as much as the cases you have brought in your memorials. And if you cannot, that's fine, because there is no time. And obviously the judges understand that and everything. And for respondent side, it is the same. They are going to stand in the place where the respondent is being seated, and you will ask the judges, if the lordships permits, I would move on to the podium, and you'll be introducing yourself. This is counsel 1 on behalf of the respondent in the case of A versus B. For respondent, few teams will not be explaining the facts just because the petitioner explained the fact. You shouldn't do that. Even if you are a respondent side counsel, you have to explain facts for 2 minutes, because you'll be having a separate marking criteria in the judge's hand knowledge of facts. It will be given as knowledge of facts, and it is out of 10 or 15 marks, and it depends upon the different moot court competitions. And you will lose that marks if you don't explain your facts. The judges will obviously think that if the judge is the first time adjudicator in your case, he or she will think that the person doesn't know the fact. That's why he or she doesn't explain it. So you shouldn't give that space to the judges. You have to explain the fact, even if you are a respondent side counsel. After explaining the facts to the council, you will obviously ask how the petitioner, how it is already typed here. You can take a screenshot or you can write in a notebook or anything. If the council seeks permission to begin with the issue one, and after your issue one, the same. If the lordships are satisfied with issue one, I would move on to issue two. And if the lordships are satisfied with issue one and two, I'd move, my co-counsel will deal with issue three and four and everything. And that's it for respondent. And so this is your oral argument. And after your oral arguments, rebuttal, there is a concept called rebuttal and surrebuttal. Rebuttal will be done by the petitioner, and the answer for the rebuttal will be given by the respondent. Rebuttal in the sense nothing but if the petitioners find any fault in your memorial, or if the petitioners find any fault in your argument, or the way you spoke there, in the way you spoke there, in the sense, if you mislead any wrong cases, if the case you cited there was supporting the petitioners that time, or if you have any fault in your argument type or something, the petitioner will rebut you. That is called rebuttal. The petitioners, after completing the arguments, both side arguments, the petitioner counsel, any one of the petitioner counsel will come and stand in the podium to ask you the fault. He may ask, the case cited by the co-counsel 2 of the respondent is totally wrong, and the judgment favors the petitioner side, and the respondent is not aware that the judgment talks about this or that something. He may ask any rebuttal, and the respondent is liable to answer whatever the petitioner asks you. So after the petitioner rebutes for 2 minutes, as already mentioned, the petitioner rebutes for 2 minutes, and sorry for the delay. And that's it for your oral arguments. And after finishing your prelims 1 and 2, you will be having your meetup session there. In your meetup session, you will be giving the top 8 teams. Top 8 teams will be called, and they'll be having your draw lots for rounds. That will be given to you in most of the modes. Within half an hour, you have to read out the memorials given by the opponent. And if you find any fault in the memorial, is also you can ask it in your rounds. Right. So you can ask if there are any mistakes. Even different. The or the opponent side has wrongly typed his petition, you can ask it in front of the that the petitioner doesn't know what type of petition it is, and he or she standing before the court and wasting the time of the judges. You can talk whatever you like, and there should be some logic in it. That's it. So, any regarding the preparation of memorial, preparation of your oral arguments.
Everyone, please fill the feedback form I have given in a chat box session. Please check it out.
how to how to reply to the questions that judge asks. In a sense, you are going to answer what the judge asked. I couldn't understand how to reply in this. If the judges ask you whether how this case, if you're citing a case, and if the judge asks you how this case is relevant to the argument you're doing, you can say how the argument is, how the judgment is. Lordship, so and so is the judgment of this case, and so I have taken this case law like that. That's why, and while answering to the judges, you should be so polite. And if you don't understand the question, you can obviously ask the judges again. Pardon, Lordship, and the question you asked was not understandable by me, so I request you to repeat it once again. Any other doubts?
Ma'am, I have one more question.
Yes.
Ma'am, during my last moot court, uh, the judge was not satisfied with our issues presentation, so he asked us to leave some issues. So, how to deal with such situations, like how to impress the judge again?
You will be impressing the judges by your way of argument only. What is the reason that the judge was not satisfied? You didn't argue properly, or you were not having enough cases cited, or you were not respectful to the court. There are many reasons that the judge was not satisfied, so you can correct it the next time. You can bow in front of the judge while going to the podium. You can have your hand on the chest while reading the prayer. And these are the small tips that the you can make the judge
Ma'am,
impress.
majorly the judge was not satisfied with us because we were not able to prove our point.
Okay, the way you explained was not reachable to the judge. So you can explain to the judge with the simple language. uh, the main aim that you stand before the court is not to show your English skill or something. Your major aim before standing in front of the court is to make the judge understand what is your play, and make the judges impressed by the way of your behavior in the court, your dress code and everything. How to include facts in your arguments, in a sense, if there will be some loopholes in your facts. If you read that again and again, you'll find out that loopholes, and you can use that loopholes while arguing. So if in any of the facts it is given that the NGO, if for example in NGO, the NGO has already filed a writ petition before a decade and something. So you can obviously stand lay before the court that this NGO has already had a case for this has had a case of public investigation, and it is a pure regard that this NGO is not working for public. It is obviously working for the advertising of the own NGOs. How to be confident during arguments. So in before you move on to your moot court, your real competition, you have to sit before your friend, sit before your parent, or sit before your sibling and explain the facts. Should I'll just complete that. You have to sit for your. They can ask you so that you will get practiced to clearing the doubts and something. So what my institution used to do is before we are leaving for a moot court. For example, we are leaving for a moot court in 2 days or the next day. There will be three staffs sitting in front of us and will be arguing as if you are arguing in the real moot court competition. So because they know the because they know the law or the fact, they'll be asking questions to us, and we will be answering that in our regard. and they will correct it. In this question you can obviously answer like this, and in this question you can change your modulation like this or any other thing. They will give you feedback. It may be a positive feedback, it may be a negative feedback, and it should be done before going to a real moot court. For every moot court, even if it is your 10th moot court, go stand before the assistant professors in your college, argue before them and ask them to ask out any doubt or anything from the memorial or from your arguments. So if you get used to argue in front of your professors, it will be easy for you in front of the real moot court. You will be confident that it is a problem already dealt with us. So there will be, the confidence will automatically come by your practice. Ma'am, while arguing how a voice modulation should be, many opponents have aggressive way of speaking. Many work with the defensive point. Which one works better? It depends on the facts. For example, I am the speaker one in my team, and my speaker two is a male person. He's my super junior. He's 2 years below rank for me, and I use a very modular voice. How I am using now, I don't have the habit of shaking hands or something, but he has the habit of having a more aggressive voice while arguing. For few things he will be having a very soft voice, and for few things he will be having a very loud or aggressive voice, and he'll be showing his hands like this or like this. So it is the way of speaking. You can use any way, but avoid pinpointing the judges like this or like this. No, you can use your hands like this or like this. You can for describe it in the whole of India like that, but you shouldn't just pinpoint the judges. That is, both the way works better. If you're arguing in a very modular voice the whole 10 minutes, it will be boring. So in between you have to put in the loud voice, in between you have to be aggressive, in between you have to be low. So changing the modulations minute by minute will work better. Then only it will be interesting for the judges to listen. If you are coming and standing in front of the court and arguing aggressively, it will also be the cause of cause that irritates the judges. So you can use both the voice side by side. As you're not using permission, all the things is normally how to practice this. What is this? As we are not using permission, all the things in normally, how to practice this? You have to you should. That's why I told you have to practice in your classroom before going on to. So if you're practicing 2 or 3 times with your friends or with your professors, you will automatically get the habit to go and ask permission for that. If for me in my very first moot, I was also not aware about this permission and all. I saw it when my opponent asked this permission, so I obviously took it up and started asking the permission for rest of the moot. But what to say is, you have to you should have the conscious that we are in the court hall and we are going from our bench to the podium. So obviously we have to ask the judges who is sitting in front of him. So that should be a conscious sense. You have to feel as if you're sitting in your real court. That's why it works. Ma'am, if there is not any mistake found in the memo of the respondent regarding case, then still rebuttal will be done with the petitioner. Or if the respondent has found mistake, can they start rebut against the petitioner further? No, so rebuttal will be done by petitioner only. If you don't have any mistake in your memorial, any mistake in your argument, still the petitioner finds way to ask you something. He will ask you doubt. Obviously, rebuttal will be done by petitioners only. And while you are given time for rebuttal, you can ask any doubt if you have from the side of petitioner, but not as a question way, but as a doubtful way. The petitioners in their memorial have cited this case, and has responded, I would like to know how far it is matching or how far it is colliding with the facts of the case. Like that you can ask. If the judge is going rude to you, what method to handle the situation? Is directly going for sorry or some other? I used to say sorry. I'm sorry, Lordship, I am unaware of this. That's it. Judges will be going rude to you in your semi-finals and final rounds. In your preliminary round, we will be instructed before coming to the court hall. We will be instructed that not to ask more than 5 or 6 questions for each counsel. But in final rounds, you won't be allowed to explain your arguments at all. When you are explaining your facts, the judge will stop you there. That's it. finish, he will start roasting you. Will be after coming out of the court hall, will be saying, so he deep fried me, he air fried me. So that obviously happens. He will, if the judge is going rude, it doesn't mean he is rude. Just because of the competition, he is acting rude. So if you can't handle that situation, you can obviously ask sorry, and you can say the council is unaware of unaware of this case or something. That's it. So any other doubts? And all the best for your moot court competitions, those who are about to go or who are having planned to go some other things. All the best.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining this meeting. Thank you so much, Tayyaba ma'am, for such a wonderful session. Everyone, please fill the feedback form I have given in a chat box session. If you will fill the form, then only you will receive the certificate. Otherwise, you will not get your certificate. Please fill the feedback form. I am telling you once again, please fill the feedback form. Thank you, everyone. You may leave now.
I have sent the models to the coordinator, so he will obviously send you if there is any common WhatsApp group for you all. Okay, thank you.